It's time for the Las Vegas Sportsline. Brought to you by Caesars Entertainment, where every guest is treated like Caesar and every visit is unforgettable.
It is the Wednesday edition of the Las Vegas Sportsline. It's our Caesars Entertainment Wednesday. A lot of entertainment going on at the Caesars properties around town. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Jeff Davis is on the phone with Teddy Covers and myself, Dave Cokin. All right, Platinum is our producer. Hi, Jeff. What's going on, man?
Dave, what's happened? How are you today?
I'm better than you are because you have got to be going absolutely bonkers right now. It's different for the bettors.
Sure.
We can just say, we'll just take action. The openers are popping up all over the place. Now Cleveland has decided, hey, you know what? This looks like fun. We'll go with an open. We're going with an opener tonight. Explain the difficulty this process presents for the odds makers because you're supposed to list available pitchers.
Yeah, and we're actually sitting and talking to compliance, and hopefully I can have an answer by the end of the weekend. We were talking about just writing in any pitcher as the listed pitcher for, these teams that, like Tampa uses Stanek, but They're going to use Stanek all the time. And Osmus just names a guy, then he names another guy. He's like, he's not going to pitch, and it's a nightmare. So you have to – what ends up happening is if there's 3 pitching changes, everybody who bets the run line or the total gets their bet refunded and either has no action or has to come back to the book or go to the app and bet it again. And we all know that no matter who throws the first inning, it's not really going to change the price more than a penny or two because – these guys are only throwing 1 inning. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a nightmare.
So what do you do with a game like the A's and the Angels tonight, which still doesn't have a pitcher announced for Oakland?
No, it's off the board everywhere. And it's becoming, more a part of the strategy of baseball where you want your starter to actually begin in the second inning so they only theoretically face the top of the order twice and they can go deeper into the game. But, yeah, it's where we are, and we're looking to, maybe be able to list any pitcher as the pitcher when we know the number isn't going to make a difference.
The funny twist on this is, had it not worked so well for Tampa last year, nobody would be doing it. But it did, and it's still working for them this year. And now, even teams that today's a perfect example. From out of nowhere, Cleveland is now going with an opener in front of Carrasco. Didn't see that coming, and it really, I guess this is going to have to be addressed because I would not be surprised if there are like 8 teams doing it before too long. It's spreading faster than legalized wagering.
Yeah, and the one thing with Cleveland is at least on the odds screen, it lists Carrasco as going to the DL. So
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I actually just brought up Twitter here. It looks like he has some type of blood condition that makes him feel lethargic. So this one might actually be a one-off with Cleveland, but that doesn't solve the conundrum that is Brad Osmus.
Well, you don't have to list starting lineups in the NBA, okay? And let's concentrate on the main event tonight and the other main event that picks up tomorrow. And we'll start with the NBA. Game 3 tonight. We'll catch up on the betting numbers here, but there's a lot to talk about because, boy, I mean, they're betting Toronto, it looks like, and I think a lot of that has to do with the injury situation with Golden State. They're out of depth at this point.
They sure are. I mean, Durant was ruled out yesterday, and if Thompson doesn't play, what are they down to, 6 guys, 7 guys? I mean, Golden State's in bad shape, but, Cousins really came on in Game 2 and showed he can be an integral part of the Warriors and what they do, and with Curry and Green still 100% healthy, I'm not ready to, dismiss Golden State by any stretch of the imagination.
But in terms of betting action, has it been just steady Raptors money? And does this have the feel of a throwaway game, in a sense, in the finals for Golden State if Thompson doesn't play?
It's really interesting because this line opened 5.5 and it got bet up to 6 right away.
Yep.
And then, they announced Durant out. And some places went to 4.5 right away. And we kind of thought he was going to be out anyways, so we didn't move it. And we took some +5.5 and some +5. So we were at 4.5 this morning, and if we did this call at, say, 9, 10 o'clock, I would have told you there is no interest at Golden State at all. It's all Raptor money. But in the last, 3 hours or so, the Golden State money has really started to show. It kind of makes me think Thompson's going to play. We're almost even to it now. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this number tick back up again if Clay ends up playing. But, yeah, there are a lot of Golden State money pouring in over the last couple hours.
Would you say that's respected money, or is it just more of a flood of public money that just doesn't believe this team's going to lose in Oakland?
It's more public money, but that being said, I feel like Clay is probably going to play, and I think the number might end up drifting back to where the opener was, maybe 5.5.
One thing for sure, guys. I don't really input this into the handicapping of the game. It doesn't matter the sport. But my sense is Toronto has no fear of the Warriors at this point. Teddy, do you concur?
Well, they won by 20 when they were at Oracle earlier this season. Took them to OT at home. Played 2 even games at home to open up the postseason. I don't think that there's an intimidation factor for the Warriors over the Raptors. But that being said, Golden State still has 3 rings, and Toronto doesn't. And that and the effort necessary to get that is in the back of Golden State's mind, and Toronto doesn't have that to fall back on.
You're right, Teddy, and it does come down to rings in these series. And, Toronto seems to be the good team that never can get over the hump in the playoffs. But Nurse, the head coach, it seems like he's a different animal than years past, and I wonder if he can make any sort of difference at all. I'm with you, Dave. I think the Raptors think they can win, and I think that plays into it a big time.
Well, and I'll give you one other reason why I think the coach has made a difference, and Kawhi Leonard makes a massive difference because that's a guy who
has a ring.
He's got a ring, and I think the Raptors, honestly, and you know what? They might not be wrong. I think they feel they've got the best player on the floor, period, in Kawhi Leonard, and that's important in the NBA.
Yeah, it sure is, and it goes to show. You look at. Not to change the subject too much, but if you look at the future markets for next year, all the teams that figure to fit into these big-name free agents are all super short, Clippers, Knicks, et cetera, and it just goes to show how much 1 or 2 players mean in this sport versus any other sport.
So the Raptors being in the NBA Finals has depressed the TV ratings, and it's pretty dramatic what the numbers were in recent years and what they are this year with Toronto in the finals. Have you seen a similar dip in handle for the NBA Finals, or is the action just as fast and furious as it was last year and in the recent Golden State versus Cleveland series?
Oh, no, the action is incredible. I mean, you take a look at tonight. It's Wednesday, which is generally one of, Tuesday and Wednesday are slower nights as most of the tourists come in Thursday and leave Sunday night or Monday. And the handle tonight is incredible. So, yeah, it's the NBA championship. It's just going to write tickets. Honestly, it doesn't matter who's playing because at this point, in the way the game works, if your team's good enough to get to the NBA Finals, you have 1 or 2 excellent players that move the needle and drive the handle. So, no, the business has been great.
Yeah, and the ratings don't mean what they used to because they don't take into account the number of people that are streaming events and watching online. It's like our ratings. They're okay, but they don't include anybody who's listening at the app or online or any of that stuff, and we might have more of an audience nationally than we do locally as far as that goes.
Sure, but that being said, when Holzhauer lost on Jeopardy on Monday, it had the same rating as an NBA Finals game, and that, to me, that kind of stood out a little bit. It
was a unique situation.
Sure, but you don't usually see Jeopardy have the same rating as an NBA Finals.
Plus the fact that I think the ratings were helped by the fact that people already knew he was going to lose.
Yeah, sure. The spoiler alert worked.
Yeah. All right. Let's shift gears to the NHL and talk about Jeff Davis, director of trading at Caesars Entertainment and all their locations around Las Vegas and elsewhere as well. Let's talk Cup Finals. Jeff, the Bruins are better than the Blues, but it's 2-2, and the Blues have no pressure on them, in my opinion, going to Boston for Game 5. Whereas it's a must-win for the Bruins tomorrow night. If they lose tomorrow night, they're probably going to lose the cup. So they better go out there and perform. And that's not an easy role for a team, especially when one of their best guys, Zdeno Chara, is banged up.
Yeah, Chara ruled out really an unfortunate situation, the way it happened, the shot getting deflected off his stick right into his mouth. He's ruled out, and we don't know if Grzelcyk is going to play or not. And that now becomes a huge, huge piece, because if they're missing both Grzelcyk and Chara, you're going to have to dig deep into the bench. That means Steven Kampfer or 20-year-old Urho Vakanainen would draw in.
Well, it'll be Kampfer.
But there's a possibility. Cassidy talked about going to 7 defensemen and with the possibility of scratching David Backes. David Backes has been non-existent in this series. He actually has the least amount of 5-on-5 ice time of any Bruins forward. And by going to 7 defensemen, it would enable him to play Kampfer and Vakanainen in situations where they might succeed a little bit more and they wouldn't have to play 16 or 18 minutes. So it's really going to be interesting. All of this conversation is moot, of course, if Grzelcyk can play. However, with a concussion, you never, ever know. And in his interviews, Cassidy said he's doing better, but, it didn't sound like he was overconfident that he was going to play. That being said, what's interesting about this series is, especially in hockey, the team that plays the best in a given night doesn't always win.
That's right.
Well, that's happened in all 4 games so far in the Cup. The team that has deserved to win has won each of the 4 games. And, the Bruins might be a little bit better than the Blues. I don't know how much better, but, yeah, you might be right. The Bruins with a, Game 5 at home here, probably needing a win. I've kind of thought all series, since before the series, this was going to go 7. And honestly, from what I've watched, there really isn't anything that's come about that makes me think that either of these teams are going to beat the other one twice in a row. Really excited for Game 5, and I really have no idea what's going to happen.
Same here.
So, given the Blues future tickets that are out there, the 200 to 1s and 100 to 1s, and the liability that you have if St. Louis wins this Cup, are you shading your line at all to try to attract a little bit of Boston money, or at this stage of the game, it is what it is?
A little bit of both. We've kind of had the best number on, Bruins series price all along. Like, we're at minus $1.45. And if you look around town, there's like another $1.45, but most of the places are 55. And it's such a big liability where if you take too much Bruins money, minus $1.50, you're just kind of putting yourself in a big negative EV situation on both sides. So if a decent enough win on the Bruins, they're the favorite. And, sometimes in this business, you just got to win one. And this is one where we just got to win one.
I'm going to flip this. I put baseball chat in next on the rundown, and I want to go to the Canadian Open preview because great job last week, Jeff. You talked about Patrick Cantley here on the show, and for those who listened, that's a nice payoff. Patrick Cantley with a great round on Sunday at the Memorial, absolutely phenomenal, and he wins it. I was on it. Let's turn our attention to the Canadian Open, which is, it's a prelude event because coming up next is the U.S. Open. So a lot of guys are skipping this event, and really only 3 or 4 gigantic names at very low prices in this tournament.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is one that's usually later on the schedule. They usually play it the week after the British Open, and now they've moved it with all of the PGA schedule changes this year, week before the U.S. Open. And they've changed the venue. They've usually played at Glen Abbey. Now they're playing at Hamilton Country Club. I'm wondering if they decided... It looks like some of the characteristics of the course are similar to Pebble Beach, which they're playing this week. Courses only play 7,000 yards, small greens. It's the Poa grass, which is on the Pebble greens. This course you can take driver out of the hands of you on a lot of holes. They've only played the course twice in the last 13 years, 2006 and 2012. The 2 winners were Jim Furyk and Scott Piercy. The first thing I noticed, these are the 2 of the shorter hitters on tour. So distance makes no difference at all this week. Looking through the stats of those wins. Look like par 5 scoring.